everyone, and welcome back to the Yodivos podcast. Very glad to have you here. So, we've been doing a series on storytelling, and we've covered characters, we've covered world building, and all that. And today we're going to do plotting versus pantsing, which are two different kinds of storytelling. I'll explain what that is in a minute. But before we begin, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Really would appreciate that. And also, if you're interested in reading the newsletter, all links will be in the description below. If you want to support my art or my Patreon and all those stuff, everything will be in the description. If you're interested in that, go check it out. But without further ado, let us begin. So, plotting versus pantsing. So, this storytelling series is something I'm trying to tie down in a good way, and I don't think it's the last time I'm going to talk about it. This might not be the last episode. I'm trying to think of how to make maybe the next two episodes fit together nicely so that we can take everything that I've talked about and be able to combine it into maybe a synopsis for a story and be able to create something unique out of that. So, number one, what is the plot and why does it matter? Well, a plot is the spine of your story. It's what holds the story together. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, hopefully under 10 minutes. So just to preface with that. So it's not just what happens in your story, but it also encapsulates the why of why things, the why of why things happen. So plotting versus pantsing. So those are two different kinds of storytelling, both of which I have done before, and they're fairly common. There's no better way to do either. I think it depends on what your goal is as a writer or as a storyteller. So plotting is basically coming up with a structured outline with how this is going to be beginning, middle, end, act 1, act 2, act 3. These are the characters, this is the direction they're going, this is their main mission and everything. And then there's pantsing, which I feel like is more fun and more creatively engaging, but then also can take the longest time. Pantsing is basically we'll write as we go. So the we write as we go approach is something that I feel like is very creatively engaging and really, makes you use your imagination a lot. But then I feel like it can take a long time because you have no idea where the story is going. It's just going wherever it's going. And now that's the significant difference between the two, is that the plotting part is structured, you know how things are gonna go. But then to some extent, it doesn't leave as much room for creative freedom, so to speak. So for me personally, in terms of, I try to mix the two. So I like the freedom of pantsing with the structure and predictability of plotting. So in regards to plotting, the plotting side of things, I want to have my characters in order, I want to have my locations in order, and I at least want to have a main goal. So, and then the pantsing side is I do not plan out character interactions beforehand. I just want it to naturally flow as if I'm having a conversation with someone, for example. And with that comes a certain unique kind of blend or hybrid of story writing, which is my preferred way to go. So I had touched on this about a minute ago, very briefly, but the basic story structure. There's 3 story structures: beginning, middle, and end, or act 1, act 2, act 3. The beginning is where you set up the characters, location, give details, as many details as you can about where the character is and what their goal is. The middle is where the climax is, training scenes. That's where the heartbreak happens. That's where everything that sets the character up for the climax happens. Then the climax happens, and then there's the end, or act 3, which is the resolution. And I'm saying act 1, act 2, act 3 in screenwriting language. But anyway, so it's a hook, an inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. And again, I can give very many examples of stories that use this, you know, structure. I'm going to use examples from the past, like Kung Fu Panda. We have the hook is a panda who wants to become the Dragon Warrior. Inciting incident, he is chosen as the Dragon Warrior. Rising action, Tai Long escapes from prison. Climax, Tai Long and Po, Tai Long and Shifu fight first, and then Tai Long and Po fight, and then Po defeats Tai Long, and then falling action is a value of peace is restored to its previous balance, and then resolution, everyone is happy and we set up for the next movie with a cutscene at the end. So that's a basis of how the story has been structured, and if you just take that, you can be able to switch things around, even play with your own characters, and you'll be able to have a movie that's just as fruitful. Of course, the plot isn't the only thing that defines the fruitfulness of a story. The dynamism and interaction between characters is another thing that plays very heavily. The kind of characters and the emotions they have and how they deal with things is something that contributes heavily to the flow of the story and how well the story becomes. So another thing, fourth thing, subplots and pacing. So subplots are basically side stories related to your characters, especially, or the world, the setting that they exist in, that influences, the main story, or at least the way characters act. As much as it might not be too obvious, if you watch, what's this called? I think it's called Kung Fu Panda: The Secrets of the Scrolls. It's like a mini animated thing, where it just explains the backstories of some of the characters, like the Furious Five, for example. And if you watch that and then watch the movie, you'll be able to get an idea as to why they act the way they do in the presence of certain situations. And then pacing. Pacing is exactly what it sounds like. It's just how fast or slow you bring certain moments in your plot. How fast do you want to get between... Do you want it to be 5 years between the introduction and the climax? Do you want it to be 2 months? A way that Kung Fu Panda shows time is when, the Furious Five go to fight Tai Long, and Shifu and Po go to train in the mountains of the Pool of Sacred Tears. Yeah, they go to train up there. It shows what seems to be months passing because these are long distances between these locations, and that's a way of setting a pace or showing time. Basically showing time passing is what I think pacing is to me. And then there's plot holes, coincidences, and cliches. So plot holes are basically places in which the plot just doesn't connect, like you're going over a pothole when you're driving. It's just like, oh, okay, why is that there? Does it have anything to do with the story? It's a place that is very vague. In a very rich story, a place that's very vague, and I think those should be identified and dealt with. Coincidences is exactly what it is. It's okay, what are the chances of this happening, stuff like that. And cliches are just a mediocrity of sorts, for lack of a better word, in regards to the writing of your story. So I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing with all the other episodes, and I'm going to give an example of a good plot and a bad plot with 1 or 2 simple sentences. So original example of a bad plot and a good plot. So a bad plot example. A boy wakes up, discovers he's a chosen one, defeats a villain, 3 pages with no struggle, and he gets a crown or gift or whatever. And then a relatively good plot example with the exact same angle. A boy wakes up in a war-torn world. He uncovers a prophecy about a chosen one, but he's not it. He helps a real chosen one, but learns his value isn't in fate, but in choice. Now we want to know, what's the deal with his fate and choice and all that. It makes you want to know more, just like with all the other previous examples in past episodes. So one sounds rushed and another one sounds like One sounds like a rushed school assignment, and the other is seems like it's worth reading. Yeah, and I feel like that encapsulates everything that I could say about the way plots are built. They're relatively simple and straightforward. Just know, what does your character want, where are they set, beginning, middle, and end. How do you space, the action? How do you show time when you're writing, or whether it's writing for a screenplay, whether it's writing for a novel, whether it's writing for a short story, whether it's a composition, a fictional composition. Just keeping those things in mind will be able to help you build good plots. And that will be it for me today. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I don't think I have much else to say. I have an art channel that I'm planning on growing more and more. So if you're subscribed here and you're not subscribed there, I truly, truly would wish that you could consider subscribing both here and on Instagram if you could. No pressure if you can't. Yeah, and I hope to do something special over there. I have a few projects that I am working on Patreon. I've changed the name of Patreon from Yodaverse to just my name, Luke Mavia. I've changed the name because I wanted to encapsulate everything that I do. So I've added one tier. It's a tier that encapsulates or where my projects will be hosted. So there'll be early access to videos, there'll be longer and more engaging podcast episodes, subscriber chats, and all that. I'm going to set up a Discord and everything. Don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I want to make sure that everything is set up to the point where even if there's no one for now, eventually when people start coming along, there'll be something of value waiting for them. And I believe that I lied to myself the first time I tried the Patreon thing in regards to saying I can't offer value. The only reason I believed I couldn't offer value is because I never asked myself the right questions. What value am I adding to people's lives? And despite not being able to fully answer that question, in the pursuit of doing so, I shouldn't neglect myself the opportunity to be able to learn, grow, and monetize my work. So there'll be a couple of announcements in the future that I hope to tell you guys about, but I don't want to make this outro too long. I've made a newsletter issue on everything that I love about Japan and its culture. It is something that I really, really, really love. Japanese culture, language, everything. We've been learning the language for a bit now, and yeah, so if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. All links in the description below. I really, really, really appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.